Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. Clara Hastings had never believed in ghosts or curses until the day the letter arrived. A simple envelope of heavy cream-colored paper bore a single wax seal bearing her family crest. Inside, in elegant, looping script, was a message informing her that she had inherited Blackwood Manor, an ancient estate in the remote countryside. Even more startling was the mention of a priceless family heirloom hidden among the manor's relics, a mask that had been in the Hastings line for generations, rumored to reveal the true nature of one's soul, or so the old stories said. Reluctantly, Clara left behind the sterile world of the city and returned to the sprawling, ivy-clad mansion that had been in her family for as long as anyone could remember. The manor, with its creaking corridors and flickering gaslights, exuded an air of melancholic grandeur. In a dust-choked attic, among stacks of yellowed letters and forgotten portraits, she found a battered wooden chest. Inside lay an ornate mask. Its surface of burnished silver was etched with delicate, twisting patterns, and its eyes, though vacant, seemed to burn with an inner fire. Tucked alongside the mask was a fragile note. "Beware the gaze that lingers too long, for it steals the visage and leaves the soul adrift." Clara's heart pounded as she cradled the mask in her hands. Though part of her trembled with fear, another part, one that had always been drawn to the mysterious and the inexplicable, felt an irresistible pull. That night, as the wind whispered secrets through the broken windows of her old family study, Clara sat before a tarnished mirror. With a deep, steadying breath, she placed the mask over her face. At first, nothing happened but the expected weight of cool metal against her skin. Yet as she stared into the mirror, a strange sensation began to envelop her. The reflection that met her eyes was not her own familiar visage. Instead, it was a shifting montage of images, a collage of faces and emotions that flickered like fragments of memories. At the edges of her vision, she saw a kindly smile from her mother long deceased, then the cold, pained expression of a stranger whose eyes were wide with terror. In the midst of these images, her own face appeared intermittently, as though struggling to assert itself against the overwhelming tide. The longer she stared, the more she felt something being drawn from her. A slow, inexorable disappearance of the very essence that defined her. With a gasp, she tore the mask away, her eyes filling with tears. The note's warning echoed in her mind. The mask steals faces, and she had glimpsed the beginning of its dreadful curse. Over the following days, Clara became haunted by inexplicable changes. At first it was subtle, a slight hollowness around her eyes, a faint blurring at the edges of her reflection. But soon the transformation became undeniable. In fleeting moments, as she passed mirrors in darkened hallways, she saw the outlines of strangers instead of her own features. Panic gripped her as she realized that the curse of the mask was spreading, slowly erasing her identity. Desperate for answers, she turned to the dusty archives of Blackwood Manor. Hidden among brittle diaries was an entry penned by her great-grandmother, Eleanor Hastings. The diary recounted the tale of a mysterious artisan, rumored to have been a cursed soul himself, who had created the mask in a fit of despair after the untimely death of his beloved. His heartbroken incantations, woven into every brushstroke, had imbued the mask with the power to steal the faces of those who gazed too long upon it, an eternal reminder of his own unending loss. Eleanor's words warned, "To see the truth in the mask is to risk the very essence of who you are. Beware, for time spent in its gaze may leave you but an empty shell." Clara's blood ran cold. The legacy of the mask was not merely a family heirloom. It was a conduit of a tragic magic that had haunted her lineage for generations. Haunted by the creeping erosion of her identity, Clara resolved to find a way to break the curse. She sought out experts in ancient curses and mystical lore, venturing into the secret circles of antiquarians and occult scholars. In a dim, book-lined study at a nearby university, she met Professor Adrian Blackwood. No relation, though his surname was an eerie echo of her own. Professor Blackwood had dedicated his life to studying cursed artifacts and believed that every dark magic could be countered by an act of true sacrifice. The professor explained that the mask was not inherently evil. It was a mirror that reflected the inner truth of its wearer. But when one's gaze lingered too long, the mask absorbed the very essence of the person, leaving behind a void where identity once dwelled. To break the curse, Professor Blackwood advised, one must perform a ritual of unbinding, a ceremony that required confronting one's deepest fears, acknowledging every hidden sorrow, and offering something irreplaceable as a token of atonement. Clara's determination hardened. She vowed to reclaim her identity, even if it meant delving into the darkest recesses of her soul. With the professor's guidance, she began to prepare for the ritual, a process that would test her courage and resolve beyond measure. Clara reached out to others who, like her, had encountered the mask's sinister power. In hushed whispers, several members of the Hastings family came forward, sharing their own experiences of gradual disappearance, of faces fading from photographs and reflections. Their stories were heartbreaking, each victim a casualty of the mask's relentless hunger for identity. Some had tried to hide, locking themselves away in rooms devoid of mirrors. Others had sought to destroy the mask, only to have it reappear in their family's most sacred heirlooms. Together they formed a clandestine gathering, the Circle of Lost Faces, a support group united by grief and the determination to fight back against the curse. Under the flickering light of oil lamps in the manor's hidden basement, they recounted their tales, each narrative a testament to the slow erosion of self. They vowed to pool their knowledge, to scour ancient texts and consult with mystics, all in the hope of finding a way to break the curse that had haunted the Hastings lineage for generations. After months of research and painstaking preparation, the Circle of Lost Faces, led by Clara and Professor Blackwood, devised a ritual they believed could counteract the mask's dreadful magic. The ritual required 3 sacred elements: a silver mirror polished to perfection, a vial of water collected from the ancestral spring that had once nourished the Hastings estate, and a personal token representing the wearer's true self, something imbued with their life's essence. Clara chose a delicate locket containing a faded photograph of her late mother, a symbol of the love that had shaped her identity. On the night of the winter solstice, when the veil between the worlds was at its thinnest, the group gathered in the grand hall of Blackwood Manor. Candles were lit, their soft flames dancing against the ancient stone walls, and the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. With the silver mirror placed on an ornate pedestal, the vial of spring water set at its center, and Clara's locket carefully laid beside it, Professor Blackwood recited a litany of incantations from a tattered grimoire. The air grew charged, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The mask, resting on a velvet cushion on the opposite wall, appeared to pulse with a dark, insistent rhythm. As the incantations reached a fevered pitch, the mirror began to shimmer, and a ghostly wind rustled through the hall. One by one, each member of the circle offered a whispered confession of their deepest fears and regrets. The collective admission filled the room with a raw, cathartic energy. In a climactic surge, the mirror's light flared, enveloping the entire hall in a cascade of silver brilliance. The sound of a heartbeat, long muted, now echoed with renewed vigor. In that transcendent moment, Clara felt as though a piece of her soul was being restored. A delicate fragment of identity returned from the abyss, The mask's influence, though not entirely vanquished, was diminished. Its curse had been weakened, if only for a while, by the shared act of healing and remembrance. In the days that followed the ritual, the atmosphere within Blackwood Manor shifted perceptibly. The once oppressive aura of the cursed mask softened into a bittersweet melancholy, a reminder that while the curse had taken a toll, the strength of the human spirit could endure and even overcome. Family members who had long been haunted by fleeting moments of facelessness found solace in the memory of the ritual, and slowly fragments of their identities began to return. Clara continued to wear the mask sparingly, using it as a tool for introspection rather than a constant burden. With each measured glance, she learned to balance the revelations of the mask with the resilience of her spirit. The circle of lost faces met regularly, sharing progress and offering support. The ritual had not entirely undone the curse, but it had created a space for healing, a way to acknowledge the stolen fragments of self without allowing them to define one's entire existence. Professor Blackwood documented these developments in a series of scholarly treatises, noting how the interplay between ancient magic and personal redemption could sometimes yield miraculous recoveries. His work, combined with Clara's deeply personal memoirs, eventually became a seminal text on the nature of cursed artifacts and the transformative power of facing one's inner darkness. As time passed, the legacy of the mask began to extend beyond the Hastings family. Scholars and mystics from distant lands sought out the story of the Mask of Veritas, as it came to be known, and the tale of those who had been nearly erased by its insidious magic. Exhibitions were held at museums and private collections, where the mask was displayed behind protective glass, a relic of both caution and possibility. Clara, now recognized as a leading voice on the nature of cursed artifacts, traveled widely to lecture on her experiences. Her memoir, Reflections in the Gaze, captured the raw, emotional journey of confronting the unvarnished truth of her own soul. She spoke of the pain of losing pieces of oneself, but also of the beauty in reclaiming those fragments through love, art, and shared vulnerability. In these lectures, she often repeated a simple yet profound truth: to know oneself fully is to embrace both the light and the shadow within. The mask may steal our faces, but it cannot steal our capacity to rebuild, to remember, and to transform our pain into a tapestry of resilience. The transformative journey did not end with Clara alone. Over the following decades, many descendants of the Hastings family, once haunted by the curse, found ways to use the dark legacy of the mask to fuel a renaissance of art, literature, and introspection. A series of annual gatherings known as the Festival of Unveiled Faces became a celebrated tradition in the community. At these gatherings, family members and invited guests would share stories of personal growth, display artworks inspired by their struggles, and honor the memory of those lost to the curse. The festival, a bittersweet celebration of both sorrow and triumph, served as a reminder that the mask, despite its malevolent power, had also been a catalyst for profound personal transformation. In embracing the truth of their own identities, the descendants discovered a resilience that transcended the curse. They learned that while some memories could never be fully reclaimed, they could be woven into the tapestry of life as a source of strength and inspiration. In the quiet twilight of her later years, Clara would often sit in the restored family study, gazing at the Mask of Veritas now encased in glass. The room filled with relics of the past, old photographs, handwritten letters, and mementos of lost time, whispered of a history that was both beautiful and tragic. As she reflected on her journey, she realized that the mask had served as a catalyst for healing, a painful, challenging mirror that forced her to confront her own truth and ultimately to embrace it. Her memoirs, now a cherished legacy, continue to inspire those who struggled with the complexities of identity and memory. The story of the mask that steals faces became a symbol not of irreversible loss, but of the enduring power of the human spirit to reclaim what is most precious, the unfiltered truth of who we are. And so, the legend endures, a timeless tale of magic, sorrow, and redemption. The Mask of Veritas, with its haunting ability to erase the facade and reveal the raw, unvarnished soul, stands as a testament to the courage it takes to face one's true self. For as long as there are hearts brave enough to look beyond the surface, the shifting, mysterious magic of the mask will continue to echo through the ages, a reminder that even in the face of great loss, the potential for renewal and transformation is ever present. Thus ends the chronicle of the mask that steals faces, a story woven from threads of darkness and light, of sorrow and hope. In every stolen visage, in every reclaimed moment of truth, there lies an enduring lesson, that to confront the depths of one's soul is the ultimate act of courage, and in that brave revelation, the true beauty of the human spirit is revealed. Evelyn Wren, a dedicated historian and the village's unofficial chronicler of lore, had grown up on the tales of Brackenvale's mysteries. Her grandmother's voice would carry on winter nights as she recounted the legend of the windmill, an eerie yet mesmerizing symbol of the unseen forces that govern their world. When Evelyn inherited the dilapidated Wren cottage on the outskirts of the village, she also inherited a dusty journal filled with handwritten notes and faded photographs of the windmill in its heyday. Determined to understand the phenomenon, Evelyn resolved to restore both the cottage and the memory of the ancient windmill. The windmill, known by villagers simply as the Turning, had long been an icon of Brackenvale. Built in the early 1800s by a pioneering miller whose innovative spirit was rivaled only by his mysterious fate, the windmill was once the heart of the community, powering the village's grain mills and standing as a testament to human ingenuity. Over time, however, as newer technologies emerged and the old ways faded, the windmill fell into disrepair. Yet even as its once proud sails grew weathered and creaky, the legend of its supernatural turning persisted. Despite the absence of any measurable wind, its sails rotated on certain, still, silent nights, as if animated by a secret, otherworldly force. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and a velvet dusk blanketed Brackenvale, Evelyn ventured out to inspect the windmill. With her journal and camera in hand, she approached the weathered structure. The air was unnervingly still. There was not even a whisper of a breeze. Yet as she drew near, she saw something inexplicable. The massive sails of the windmill turned slowly, gracefully, despite the absolute stillness of the surrounding air. Her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Was it merely an optical illusion, or was the windmill truly moving on its own accord? Evelyn set up her camera to capture the phenomenon and began to record her observations in her journal. As minutes turned into hours, the sight held her in a trance. The slow, deliberate rotation of the sails seemed to evoke a rhythm, a heartbeat of a force that defied the logic of nature. That night, she left the windmill with more questions than answers, the image of its turning sails etched into her memory like an indelible mark. Over the following weeks, Evelyn immersed herself in research. She pored over town records, diaries, and obscure manuscripts that chronicled the history of Brackenvale. In a tattered ledger from the early 19th century, she discovered the story of Samuel Wren, the windmill's original builder, whose untimely death was shrouded in mystery. Samuel had been rumored to have dabbled in arcane practices, a desperate attempt to harness nature's secrets in order to save his ailing family. Some whispered that, in his final act, as he lay dying, he had made a pact with forces beyond the mortal realm. His final wish had been that his windmill continue to turn as a symbol of hope, even when the natural world offered no wind. Evelyn began to suspect that the windmill's ceaseless motion was no random quirk of old mechanics. It was imbued with a spell, one that kept it turning even when the air was perfectly still. But the nature of that magic was elusive, woven into the fabric of time and sorrow, and perhaps even the unfulfilled dreams of its creator. One particularly silent night, when the moon shone with a pale, otherworldly light and the village was cloaked in a deep, starless sky, Evelyn returned to the windmill for another observation. As she sat near its base, she felt a strange vibration underfoot, as if the earth itself was humming a quiet lullaby. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a faint murmur began to rise on the still air, a soft, almost musical whisper that seemed to emanate from the windmill's ancient stones. Evelyn listened intently, straining to catch the words carried on the silence. They were not clear, yet they held the cadence of a long-forgotten language, a hymn of sorrow and longing. In that moment, the windmill appeared to speak, not in the language of man, but in the language of the heart, a language that conveyed the deep, enduring legacy of Samuel Wren and the mysterious forces he had invoked. The voices seemed to echo the promise that the windmill would continue to turn as a beacon of hope, even in a world devoid of wind, a silent tribute to the human spirit's refusal to yield to despair. Word of Evelyn's discovery spread quietly through Brackenville. Curious villagers, scholars, and even a few skeptical outsiders began to visit the windmill on nights when the air was still. In hushed tones, they shared their own observations. The inexplicable turning of the sails, the faint murmur of voices in the silence, and the feeling that the windmill was more than a mere relic of the past, but a living, breathing symbol of hope and melancholy intertwined. At one such gathering, a local innkeeper named Mr. Jenkins recounted an old family tale. My grandfather said the windmill was built not just to grind grain, but to remind us that even in our darkest hours, when the world seems motionless and hope is but a memory, there is always a spark, a whisper of life that endures, he said, his voice trembling with reverence. The shared stories wove a tapestry of wonder and sorrow, binding the community together in a common belief that the windmill was a guardian of secrets and a keeper of timeless hope. Inspired by the collective yearning to understand the magic of the windmill, Evelyn proposed a daring idea, a ritual of renewal that might unlock the secret behind its ceaseless turning. She believed that by combining the ancient lore of Brackenville with modern scholarship and the heartfelt stories of its people, they could unravel the mystery and perhaps even harness the windmill's magic for the good of the community. Under a full radiant moon, the villagers gathered around the windmill in a solemn ceremony. They brought offerings of wildflowers, old letters, and mementos of loved ones lost to the ravages of time. At the stroke of midnight, Evelyn led the group in reciting an incantation adapted from Samuel Wren's long-forgotten diary. As the words flowed through the crisp night air, the ground beneath them seemed to vibrate softly, and the windmill's sails began to turn even more steadily than before. The murmurs in the air grew into a harmonious chorus, a merging of ancient voices with the heartfelt hopes of the villagers. In that transcendent moment, the windmill became a living symbol of renewal, a beacon that promised that even in the stillness, the human spirit could find a way to turn the tide of fate. Yet the ritual also revealed a darker truth. In the aftermath of the ceremony, as the villagers returned to their homes under the lingering glow of the moon, Evelyn noticed that the windmill's magic seemed to have a cost. Those who had participated in the ritual reported experiencing vivid dreams, nightmares, and visions of the past where time itself rewound in painful, unyielding loops. One young man claimed that he had seen the moment of his own birth reversed, a scene filled with the overwhelming sorrow of lost potential. Others spoke of memories they wished they could forget, relived in excruciating detail during the long, silent hours of the night. Evelyn, though determined to understand the true nature of the magic, could not ignore these warnings. In her journal, she wrote, "The windmill's turning, though a symbol of hope and resilience, is tethered to a legacy of sorrow. Every revolution of its ancient sails seems to extract a price, a fleeting moment of our essence, a glimpse into a past we can never reclaim. The gift of turning back time, it seems, is as much a curse as it is a blessing. This realization weighed heavily on her, and she began to grapple with a profound question. Was it truly a gift to be able to glimpse the past? Or was the relentless pull of memories a burden too heavy for the soul? As the months passed, the mystery of the windmill and its enchanted turning became a central part of Brackenvale's collective consciousness. The villagers found themselves torn between the allure of the past and the imperative to move forward. The windmill's ceaseless turning, even in the absence of wind, served as a metaphor for their own lives. A reminder that while the past could be revisited, it was a realm from which one might never return unchanged. In a heartfelt town meeting held in the old community hall, elders, youths, scholars, and ordinary residents debated the fate of the windmill's magic. Some argued that its power was a blessing, a source of wisdom and renewal that could help them learn from the past. Others warned that the endless turning was a trap, a curse that threatened to keep them shackled to memories of sorrow and regret. Amid the heated discussions, a quiet voice emerged, one that belonged to Evelyn. "We cannot change what has been, nor can we erase our memories," she said softly. "But we can choose how we carry them." The windmill reminds us that life, like time, is always in motion. We must honor our past, learn from it, and then let it go so that we may build a future unburdened by endless echoes. Her words resonated deeply with the villagers, who slowly came to accept that the key to healing was not to cling to the past, but to let its lessons guide them toward new beginnings. Years later, as Brackenvale emerged from its long night of sorrow into a season of gentle renewal, the legend of the windmill that turned when there was no wind became a cherished part of the town's identity. The windmill, now restored and maintained by the community, continued its mysterious rotation, its ancient sails turning silently against the backdrop of a clear, windless sky. Though its magic remained enigmatic, it had come to symbolize the eternal dance between memory and hope, between sorrow and the promise of a new day. Evelyn's memoir, The Turning of Time, was published and touched countless readers, inspiring them to confront their own past with courage and to embrace the inevitability of change. The book recounted not only the mystery of the windmill, but also the journey of a community learning to let go of the ghosts that had haunted them for so long. In every chapter, the windmill's turning was a metaphor, a quiet, relentless reminder that while the past may shape us, it does not have to define us. In the soft light of a fading afternoon, on a day when the air was calm and still, the villagers of Brackenvale would gather by the restored windmill. They would watch in silent reverence as its sails rotated, slowly, gracefully, as if caressing the horizon with the wisdom of ages. The windmill had become a beacon, not of despair, but of hope, a monument to the human spirit's resilience in the face of relentless time. For those who gazed upon it, the sight of the windmill turning in a windless sky was both a comfort and a call, a gentle reminder that even in the absence of external forces, the power to change, to heal, and to move forward lay within each heart. The legacy of the windmill was one of eternal transformation, a promise that while the past is forever, it is also a foundation upon which the future can be built. Thus ends the chronicle of the windmill that turns when there's no wind, a story of mystery, loss, and ultimately of the indomitable strength to forge hope from the echoes of yesterday. For as long as the windmill's ancient sails continue their quiet, inexplicable rotation, the people of Brackenvale will remember that every moment, no matter how still it may seem, holds the promise of new beginnings. Eleanor Rourke had grown up on the edge of these wild lands, where every village elder recounted the legend of the wandering graveyard with a mix of reverence and dread. As a child, she would lie awake on cold nights, listening to the wind outside and imagining spectral graves appearing and disappearing like fleeting memories. Though she longed to see it for herself, the notion of a place where death itself was unsettled filled her with both morbid curiosity and quiet fear. Now in her early 30s and a dedicated historian with a passion for the macabre, Elena found herself returning to her hometown of Brackenford. After years spent in the city, the call of her childhood legends proved irresistible. Among her late grandmother's belongings, she discovered an old journal, its pages brittle with time and inscribed with cryptic references to the restless grounds and the graveyard that moves as the night falls. With renewed determination, Elena resolved to uncover the truth behind the legend, even if it meant venturing into the unknown realms of shifting death. One crisp autumn evening, as the sky blushed with the deep reds and purples of dusk, Elena packed a small rucksack with essentials, a notebook, a camera, a lantern, and the journal of her grandmother, and set off into the twilight. The path led her along winding country roads and over rolling fields until she reached the outskirts of the ancient Brackenwood forest. Locals said that the graveyard often emerged from within these very woods, hidden beneath layers of mist and memory. The forest was alive with sound and color, the rustle of leaves, the soft chirp of crickets, and the cool whisper of the wind, but also with an unsettling stillness that seemed to defy time. As she ventured deeper, the world around her began to blur, and a thick, ghostly fog crept in, swallowing familiar landmarks and casting the landscape in surreal hues of silver and blue. Elena's heart raced. She knew she was close to something extraordinary. Just as night fully claimed the sky, she stumbled upon an expanse that was curiously barren, a field of wild grass under the pale light of the moon. In the center of the field lay a collection of weathered tombstones, their inscriptions worn and nearly indecipherable. For a fleeting moment, as she moved closer, the ground seemed to tremble and the fog shifted. Then just as suddenly, the tombstones dissolved into darkness, as if they had never been there. Elena gasped and scribbled furiously in her notebook, recording every detail of this first encounter with the elusive graveyard. Over the following nights, Elena returned to the forest, each time following subtle clues left by nature. A peculiar arrangement of stones, a sudden clearing in the mist, or the echo of distant laments that carried on the wind. She soon discovered that the graveyard's location was not fixed. It roamed the landscape like a phantom. One night, it appeared on the edge of a desolate moor, its tombstones half submerged in dew and illuminated by a ghostly moon. On another, it emerged in the ruins of an old chapel, where ivy clung to crumbling walls and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Elena documented these experiences meticulously, her journal filled with sketches and descriptions of scenes that defied logic. A graveyard whose borders blurred with the surrounding landscape, where names and dates on tombstones sometimes appeared and then vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of whispered prayers. Each encounter deepened her fascination and her fear, as she realized that this shifting necropolis was more than a mere legend. It was a living, breathing reminder of mortality's uncertainty. One moonless night, as the fog swallowed the world and the forest was cloaked in utter darkness, Elena reached what appeared to be the heart of the wandering graveyard. In a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, she found a cluster of tombstones arranged in a loose circle. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional creak of a leaning stone. As she approached, she felt a chill run down her spine. An almost imperceptible murmur began to rise from the tombstones, like distant voices carried on the wind. With a trembling hand, she placed her ear against one of the cold, rough surfaces. To her astonishment, faint whispers filtered through, a soft chorus of voices that spoke in a language of sorrow and remembrance. They told tales of lives lived in triumph and tragedy, of loves lost and forgotten. of dreams that had flickered and died. Each name that the voices uttered seemed to carry with it a story, a fragment of a soul that had once walked the earth. The experience was both heartbreaking and profoundly beautiful. It was as if the graveyard was not merely a resting place for the dead, but a living archive of all the forgotten histories and unspoken emotions of those who had passed on. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, tears streamed down Elena's face. She felt the weight of countless souls upon her heart, a burden of memory that was as luminous as it was sorrowful. Yet amid the melancholy, she sensed a call to honor these lost voices, to preserve their stories, and to keep their memories alive. In the days that followed her encounter, Elena began to piece together the mysterious forces that governed the wandering graveyard. Through conversations with elderly villagers and obscure references in her grandmother's journal, she learned that the graveyard was once the final resting place of a long-forgotten civilization. According to legend, the people of that ancient land believed that the boundary between life and death was fluid, and they built their necropolis in a location that was meant to be temporary, a sanctuary that would move with the ebb and flow of fate. Tragedy struck when an untimely calamity, an invasion, a plague, or perhaps a great betrayal, sundered the community, scattering their souls to the winds. In their grief and desperation, the survivors invoked a powerful, forbidden ritual to honor the dead, binding their memories to the very earth. The ritual, however, was not without consequence. The spell backfired. In the graveyard, once meant to be a perpetual memorial, became cursed to wander the land. Its location shifted with every passing night, as if it were following the collective sorrow of a people forever divided between memory and oblivion. Elena now understood that the wandering graveyard was both a blessing and a curse, a reminder that the dead could never be truly forgotten, but also a haunting symbol of a past that could never be reclaimed. This realization filled her with a profound sense of purpose. She resolved to document the history of the graveyard, to collect the stories of those who had been lost, and to share the wisdom hidden within the echoes of its shifting stones. Compelled by her newfound mission, Elena began to organize quiet gatherings in Elderwood. On cold, clear nights when the fog was at its densest and the full moon illuminated the barren fields, villagers, scholars, and descendants of the ancient people would come together to honor the wandering graveyard. They formed a circle of remembrance, each person contributing personal stories of loss, hope, and the enduring power of memory. At these gatherings, by the light of flickering candles and the soft glow of the moon, people recounted tales of ancestors who had vanished without a trace, of names that were whispered in the wind, and of promises made to honor the dead. The graveyard, though never seen in a fixed place, loomed large in their collective imagination, a spectral reminder that even in the face of relentless change, the bonds of memory could never be severed. Elena recorded these sessions with meticulous care. The voices, both literal and metaphorical, intermingled in a haunting chorus that spoke of sorrow and solace. As she listened, she realized that the wandering graveyard was a mirror to the human condition, a place where every life, every loss, was interwoven into the fabric of the present. The circle of remembrance became a cherished tradition, a way for the people of Elderwood to find comfort in their shared grief and to celebrate the legacy of those who had come before. In her quest to unravel the secrets of the wandering graveyard, Elena ventured further into the uncharted lands beyond Elderwood. Guided by the ancient map tucked away in her grandmother's journal, she embarked on expeditions to remote, forgotten sites where the ground seemed to hum with a spectral energy. In one desolate valley, she discovered an overgrown crypt filled with crumbling statues and faded inscriptions that spoke of eternal wandering. In another, she encountered a small, abandoned village where every building was marked by peculiar symbols, the same ones that adorned the stones in the ancient graveyard. At each location, the phenomenon was the same. As night fell, the graveyard appeared, only to vanish with the first light of dawn. With every expedition, Elena's understanding deepened. She began to suspect that the graveyard was not merely a supernatural occurrence, but a living archive of the land's history, a repository for the memories of an entire people, scattered by the tides of time and grief. One particularly stormy night, while sheltering in a ruined chapel deep in the wilderness, Elena experienced a vision. Amid the roar of the wind and the clamor of rain, she saw the graveyard materialize before her, a spectral landscape of shifting tombstones and ghostly figures bathed in moonlight. In that moment, she felt the weight of countless souls pressing upon her, and she heard a singular, heart-wrenching whisper, "Remember us." The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving her with a deep, aching certainty that the wandering graveyard was a bridge between what was lost and what remained in the hearts of those who remembered. As autumn turned to winter, the harsh cold amplified the mystery of the graveyard. The nights grew longer, and the fog that often blanketed the land took on a spectral quality, swirling around ancient stones and casting eerie, elongated shadows. During one frigid night, while the full moon glowed pale and somber, Elena ventured out to a site where the graveyard was rumored to appear. The wind was biting, and every step was a struggle against the relentless chill. At the exact moment when the clock struck midnight, the air grew thick, and a soft glow emerged on the horizon. Slowly, as if materializing from the mist, the wandering graveyard revealed itself, a cluster of weathered tombstones arranged in an intricate pattern, illuminated by the silver light of the moon. The sight was both breathtaking and terrifying, stirring a deep primal emotion within her. In the silence that followed, Elena sat before the tombstones, her breath visible in the cold air, and listened. The wind carried faint voices, each one a soft, mournful call that seemed to beckon her closer. The voices were not chaotic, but harmonized in a sorrowful lullaby that spoke of loss and longing. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming connection to the past, a tapestry of lives woven together by shared grief and the unyielding passage of time. With tears in her eyes, she vowed to honor the memories of the lost souls, to document their stories, and to ensure that the legacy of the wandering graveyard would never be forgotten. Determined to forge a path from sorrow to healing, Elena began to work with the people of Elderwood, organizing gatherings and storytelling sessions where the legends of the graveyard were shared. The circle of remembrance evolved into a community of healing, where individuals found solace in the knowledge that they were not alone in their grief. Through shared stories, the heavy burden of loss began to lighten, and the once terrifying legend transformed into a bittersweet symbol of continuity and connection. At these gatherings, elders recounted tales of ancestors who had walked the same land, of loved ones whose names were etched in stone and carried on the wind. Children with wide, curious eyes listened to these stories as if they were magical incantations that wove the past into the present. Elena's own journal, filled with poetic descriptions and raw emotional reflections, became a beacon of hope, a reminder that every memory, no matter how painful, was a treasure to be preserved. Through her efforts, the wandering graveyard became more than a ghostly phenomenon. It became a sacred space, a living monument to the enduring human spirit. The community began to celebrate the beauty of remembrance, to see in every shifting stone a reminder of the precious fragility of life. The curse of the graveyard, once a source of terror, was slowly transformed into a legacy of collective memory and resilience. Years passed, and the legend of the wandering graveyard took on a life of its own in Elderwood. Elena's work, both her writings and her community efforts, had fostered a deep connection between the villagers and the past. The graveyard, though still shifting and elusive, was no longer feared as a harbinger of doom. Instead, it was revered as a symbol of the eternal cycle of life and death. a place where the voices of the lost echoed in gentle reminders of love, sacrifice, and the enduring power of memory. On quiet nights when the moon was full and the wind carried the soft murmur of ancient voices, the villagers would gather near the known spots where the graveyard had appeared. They lit candles, recited poems, and sang old ballads, a celebration of lives that had been, and a promise that their memories would continue to live on in the hearts of those left behind. Elena's journals were passed down from one generation to the next, treasured as sacred texts that taught the value of remembrance and the healing power of shared sorrow. In the twilight of her life, Elena often wandered alone to the edge of the forest, where the mist and the shifting ground whispered of the wandering graveyard. She would sit in silence, listening to the wind and watching the stars, feeling the subtle, eternal pulse of memories that bound the past to the present. In those moments, she understood that the graveyard was not a curse, but a reminder, a gentle, perpetual echo of every soul that had ever lived, loved, and lost. For as long as the land endures, the legend of the graveyard that changes locations every night will remain, a timeless saga of sorrow and hope, of loss and redemption. It is a tale that teaches us that every life leaves behind a mark, that every name whispered in the wind is a story worth remembering, and that even in the ever-shifting sands of time, our memories are eternal. Thus ends the chronicle of the wandering graveyard, a story woven from the threads of loss and resilience, of forgotten voices and the unyielding power of memory. In every rustle of leaves and every whispered name carried on the wind, the legacy of the lost lives on, guiding us toward a future where nothing is ever truly forgotten. In the mists of antiquity, when empires rose and crumbled with the capricious moods of fate, there existed a civilization known only as the Eldrathi. The Eldrathi were a people of profound wisdom and artistry. They believed that the universe was an endless tapestry woven from dreams, memories, and forgotten desires. In their most sacred traditions, they spoke of realms that had been sealed away, realms that contained the wisdom of ages past, the echoes of long-forgotten songs, and the bittersweet remnants of lives no longer lived. It was during this golden era that the Eldrathi forged a mystical key. Crafted by their master smith, Alien, whose hands were said to be guided by the very spirit of the cosmos, the key was made from an alloy of enchanted silver and meteoric iron, imbued with incantations sung under a converging sky. Inscribed along its delicate filigree were runes in a lost tongue, a promise that the key would one day unlock the gates to the realms that had slipped away from mortal ken. For generations, the key was revered as a sacred relic, a symbol of hope that the lost wonders of the universe might one day be reclaimed by those pure of heart and steadfast in purpose. Many centuries later, in a quiet village nestled at the edge of a vast and ancient forest, a young wanderer named Cassian roamed with a yearning for adventure. Born to humble folk, Cassian was no stranger to hardship. Yet his heart burned with a secret desire to discover what lay beyond the confines of the mundane. His dreams were haunted by visions of a glowing key, radiant in moonlight and inscribed with mysterious symbols that seemed to call to him in the language of forgotten legends. One crisp autumn day, while exploring the ruins of a crumbling temple deep within the forest's embrace, Cassian's eyes caught sight of an object half buried beneath a tangle of ivy and fallen leaves. Brushing aside the detritus of time, he uncovered a small, ornate key whose metal shimmered with an otherworldly light. The runes on its surface pulsed with a quiet cadence, as though whispering secrets of realms unseen. In that singular moment, Cassian felt destiny's hand guiding him. He knew instinctively that this key was no mere trinket. It was the legendary key of forgotten realms, and its discovery was the harbinger of an extraordinary journey. With the key safely tucked into a worn leather pouch, Cassian returned to his village, his mind ablaze with questions and possibilities. Word of his discovery spread swiftly, and although many dismissed it as the fanciful ramblings of an impetuous youth, a few wise elders recalled ancient lore that spoke of such a key. Among them was the venerable seeress, Maris, whose eyes had seen many hidden truths. She confirmed that the key was indeed fated to unlock portals to worlds lost to time. Emboldened by her words, Cassian prepared to leave his familiar life behind. With nothing but a sturdy pack, a handful of supplies, and the unwavering flame of determination in his heart, he set forth on a pilgrimage across rugged landscapes, over misty hills, and through shadowed valleys. His path was uncertain, and the road ahead was shrouded in mystery. Yet every step he took resonated with the promise that the key would guide him to realms beyond his wildest imaginings. After months of arduous travel, Cassian arrived at the edge of a forgotten canyon, where the sky opened wide above and the winds carried a song of ancient memory. There, carved into the sheer rock face, was an archway of twisted stone, its surface etched with symbols that matched those on his key. With a racing heart, he inserted the key into a hidden lock embedded in the arch. For a moment, time seemed to halt as the runes flared to life. Then slowly the massive stone door began to shift aside, revealing a shimmering portal. Stepping through, Cassian found himself in a realm bathed in soft twilight. A place where the air was filled with the echoes of distant, half-remembered dreams. In this realm of echoing dreams, the boundaries between reality and memory blurred. Hazy silhouettes of past lives drifted in the background, and every footstep on the soft, luminescent ground triggered gentle ripples of light and sound. Here, Cassian encountered the spectral figure of a long-forgotten poet who recited verses of love and loss, each word a piece of the tapestry that bound the realm together. The poet explained that every dream and every memory was preserved here, awaiting those who dared to unlock them. Cassian listened, enraptured, realizing that the key had not only opened a door to another world, but also unlocked fragments of his own forgotten past. In the realm beyond the first gate, Cassian's journey grew ever more challenging. As he traversed the soft, shifting landscape of dreams, he encountered illusions and trials designed to test his resolve, his compassion, and his willingness to confront the shadows within his own soul. In one such trial, he wandered into a glade where the trees whispered secrets of sorrow and regret. The voices of those who had once lived vibrant lives now lamented in mournful tones, and Cassian felt the weight of their unfulfilled dreams pressing upon him. Here he was forced to confront his deepest insecurities and the lingering scars of his own past. Only by accepting these painful truths did the path forward clear, allowing him to continue his quest with a newfound sense of purpose and empathy. Elsewhere in the realm, Cassian encountered a labyrinth of mirrors, each reflection showing him not as he was, but as he might have been under different circumstances. Some reflections were filled with triumph and joy, others with despair and loneliness. The mirrors challenged him to accept the full spectrum of his identity, to understand that every version of himself, every choice, made and unmade, was a vital thread in the tapestry of his existence. Through these trials, Cassian emerged not unscathed, but transformed, his spirit tempered like steel forged in the fires of adversity. As Cassian journeyed deeper, the forgotten realms began to converge. The boundaries between worlds blurred, and he discovered that the key could unlock not merely isolated gateways, but a network of interconnected realms, each a repository of lost knowledge, dreams, and the emotions of long-departed souls. In one realm, he found a vibrant city of light and sound, where every thought and memory was captured in shimmering crystals suspended in the air. In another, he entered a vast, serene desert, where the sands whispered the collective history of an entire civilization. each grain a memory of life once lived. In the heart of this convergence, Cassian met Ileana, a mystic whose lineage traced back to the ancient Eldrathi. With eyes that held the depth of millennia and a voice that resonated with cosmic wisdom, Ileana revealed that the key was not only a tool for exploration, but also a test, a way to discern those who were truly ready to inherit the legacy of the Forgotten Realms. She explained that many had sought the key's power for selfish gain, only to be consumed by the overwhelming weight of others' memories. But Cassian, with his unyielding compassion and resilient spirit, had proven himself worthy. Under Ileana's guidance, Cassian learned that the true purpose of the key was to restore balance between the forgotten and the present. It was a bridge between the ancient and the modern, a reminder that every realm, no matter how lost to time, held lessons for those willing to listen. Together, they ventured into the central nexus of the Forgotten Realms, a breathtaking realm where time and space melded into a swirling maelstrom of colors, sounds, and emotions, where every secret of the past shone like a star in the night sky. At the heart of the nexus, amid the swirling vortex of memories and dreams, Cassian encountered the ethereal spirit of Alien, the master smith of the Eldrathi and the creator of the key. Alien's presence was both awe-inspiring and tender, a luminous figure who radiated warmth and ancient sorrow. In a voice that echoed like a melody from a distant past, Alien spoke to Cassian of destiny, sacrifice, and the eternal cycle of renewal. He revealed that the Forgotten Realms were not lost. They had simply been hidden from the eyes of those who had forgotten how to dream. The key, forged in a time when magic flowed freely through the world, was meant to remind humanity of its inherent capacity for wonder and transformation. It was a call to reclaim lost stories, to heal old wounds, and to embrace the vast, interconnected tapestry of existence. Alien imparted one final piece of wisdom, that the journey through the Forgotten Realms was an inward one as much as it was a physical odyssey, a journey to rediscover the hidden depths of the self and to forge a future built on the lessons of the past. With the revelations of the Nexus echoing in his soul, Cassian prepared to return to the world he had known, a world that, despite its mundane routines and transient distractions, held the potential for transformation. With Ileana at his side and the key still warm in his hand, he retraced his steps through the labyrinth of Forgotten Realms. Each gateway he passed through seemed to fade gradually into memory, yet the lessons he had learned remained etched in his heart like sacred inscriptions. When Cassian finally emerged from the last portal into the familiar landscape of his homeland, he found himself forever changed. His eyes, now imbued with the wisdom of countless forgotten souls, saw the world with a renewed clarity. The mundane had become magical, and every encounter was a chance to honor the legacy of the past. With his journal filled with the stories of realms lost and found, he became a storyteller, a guardian of memories destined to inspire others to dream again. In the years that followed, Cassian dedicated himself to sharing the knowledge of the Forgotten Realms. He traveled far and wide, speaking to communities about the power of memory and the importance of preserving the stories that time had nearly erased. His words, imbued with the magic of the key, sparked a quiet revolution among those who had long felt disconnected from the past. New generations learned to listen to the echoes of their ancestors, to reclaim the beauty of dreams once forgotten, and to honor the infinite tapestry of life. The key, now celebrated as both a relic and a symbol of hope, was housed in a grand museum, a sanctuary where scholars, dreamers, and seekers could come to marvel at its intricate design and be reminded of the profound truths it represented. Exhibits were dedicated to the lost realms Cassian had explored, each a tribute to the idea that even the most forgotten parts of our history hold lessons for the future. Artifacts, paintings, and writings inspired by his journey filled the halls, and the story of the key became a beacon for all who yearned to explore the vast corridors of memory and possibility. Even as Cassian's days on this earth slowly dwindled, the spirit of his journey lived on in the hearts of those he had touched. In quiet moments under starlit skies and the gentle glow of a full moon, people could feel the faint pulse of the key's ancient magic, a reminder that the gates of forgotten realms were never truly closed. The key had taught them that every ending was merely the threshold to a new beginning, that the past, present, and future were intricately interwoven in a tapestry of infinite wonder. In his final days, surrounded by friends, family, and admirers, Cassian penned his memoirs, a heartfelt chronicle of his travels through realms of dreams and memory. His writings, rich with detail and imbued with both melancholy and hope, became treasured texts that continued to inspire long after his passing. And on clear moonlit nights, when the wind carried a hint of magic, it was said that one could still hear his gentle voice echoing among the ancient trees, calling on those who would listen to unlock their own forgotten dreams. Now, in the quiet corners of libraries, in the whispered conversations of elders, and in the dreams of those who dare to imagine, the legend of the Key of Forgotten Realms endures. It is a story of transformation, of the eternal quest to reclaim what has been lost, and of the profound truth that every heart contains its own secret realm waiting to be unlocked. The key may be a tangible artifact forged in the fires of ancient magic, but its true power lies in the promise that every life can be transformed by the courage to remember, to learn, and to dream anew. Thus, the tale of the key that unlocks the gates of forgotten realms remains a timeless saga, a beacon of hope and renewal for all who believe that the past is never truly lost, and that within every soul lies the potential for infinite, wondrous transformation. In the sleepy village of Willowbrook, nestled among ancient oak groves and misty hills, old wives' tales and hushed warnings were passed down from generation to generation. Among these legends, none was more chilling than that of the room that grew colder. Locals claimed that the room had once belonged to a noble family whose tragic fate had cursed the very walls of their ancestral mansion. It was said that during a fateful winter, when grief and sorrow overwhelmed the household, a bitter dispute led to the untimely death of a beloved daughter. Overwhelmed by grief, the father, rumored to have dabbled in forbidden rituals, attempted to harness the forces of nature to preserve her memory. Instead, he unwittingly invoked a curse that condemned the room to a perpetual descent into cold, a physical manifestation of the icy grip of sorrow that had claimed his heart. The legend took root in Willowbrook. Some swore they felt an inexplicable chill when passing near the mansion's abandoned wing, and even the robust summer sun seemed to have little power against the unyielding cold emanating from that hidden chamber. The mansion itself, known as Blackwood Manor, stood isolated on the edge of a dense forest. Once a beacon of prosperity and familial pride, it had fallen into neglect over the decades following the family's ruin. Ivy crept along its weathered stone walls, and the once grand facade was now a silent witness to time's inexorable march. Within the labyrinthine corridors of Blackwood Manor, the cursed room lay behind a heavy oak door in a wing few dared to enter. The room's reputation had grown over time, whispered among caretakers and local historians who believed that it held the essence of the tragedy, a physical space where warmth was stolen and memories were frozen in time. It was in this mansion that a young archivist named Cecilia found herself drawn by fate. Cecilia, with her inquisitive mind and gentle soul, had always been fascinated by the past and the secrets it concealed. While cataloging the manor's neglected records, she came across cryptic references to a chamber of eternal frost that sent shivers down her spine. Determined to uncover the truth behind the legend, Cecilia resolved to explore the forbidden wing of Blackwood Manor, a decision that would alter her life forever. On a crisp autumn evening, when twilight merged with the impending chill of night, Cecilia ventured into the neglected wing of the mansion. With a lantern in hand and a heart pounding with both fear and excitement, she found the door mentioned in the faded records. The door was heavy, adorned with intricate carvings of frost and ivy, and as she pushed it open, a gust of frigid air greeted her like a warning. Inside was a small, dimly lit room that at first appeared deceptively normal. A single window, though clouded with dust, allowed a muted glow of moonlight to spill across a once elegant carpet. The room's furnishings, a wooden desk, a set of chairs, a mantel clock frozen in time, seemed untouched by the decay that had claimed the rest of the manor. Yet as Cecilia stepped further in, a subtle, creeping cold began to permeate the space. At first it was but a whisper, a coolness that tickled her skin. But as minutes passed, the temperature dropped noticeably, and the chill grew deeper, seeping into her bones and into the very fabric of her thoughts. Cecilia set up her small workspace in one corner of the room, intent on documenting every sensation and sound. With her quill and journal, she began to record the phenomenon. As she wrote, the air turned so cold that her breath became visible, a fine mist of vapor that hung in the lantern's light. The room's temperature continued to plummet steadily, as if the walls themselves were absorbing the heat of life. Cecilia could feel her fingers growing numb, and her heart pounded as she realized that the curse was not just a story, but an active force, a magic that drew warmth away, leaving only the stark, unrelenting cold. Every tick of the old clock on the mantel seemed to echo louder, as if counting down the minutes until her own vitality might succumb to the chill. Yet even as a shiver ran through her, Cecilia felt compelled to press on, driven by a desire to understand the source of this unyielding frost. The room was no longer merely a physical space. It had become a crucible for her emotions, a place where the very passage of time was measured in degrees of cold. As the night deepened, Cecilia began to notice peculiar phenomena. At the far end of the room, where the shadows stretched longer, she heard faint sounds, whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. They were the echoes of voices long silenced, fragments of conversations and cries of anguish that belonged to a time long past. In those whispers, she sensed the lingering sorrow of the family who had once inhabited the mansion, and the terrible tragedy that had cursed the room. Cecilia's mind raced as she pieced together the fragmented memories conveyed by the cold whispers. She recalled the old family records that spoke of a lost daughter, a grief-stricken father, and a forbidden ritual gone awry. It was as if the room was reliving its tragic history, each moment of despair causing the temperature to drop further. The whispers grew louder and more coherent, urging her to confront the lingering pain, to understand that the cold was not merely a physical phenomenon, but a manifestation of deep, unhealed sorrow. Driven by both dread and determination, Cecilia resolved to uncover the true nature of the curse. She scoured the mansion's dusty archives, poring over ancient diaries and brittle letters that recounted the events leading to the curse. One particularly faded journal belonged to a man named Lord Edmund Blackwood, the last master of the mansion. In a series of heartbreaking entries, Edmund confessed to his desperate attempt to preserve the memory of his beloved daughter through forbidden rites. His words spoke of a ritual performed on a bitter winter night, a ritual intended to capture her essence and eternalize her beauty. Instead, the magic had turned sour, and in its backlash, the room had become a prison of cold, a place where grief and regret were forever locked away. Cecilia's heart ached as she read the journal, and she felt an overwhelming urge to set things right. Determined to break the curse, she recalled a passage that hinted at a counter-ritual, a way to restore the warmth of life by honoring the memory of the lost, and offering forgiveness to the ancient spirit of sorrow. According to the passage, the curse could be lifted if one could confront the tragic past head-on, acknowledging the pain without letting it consume the present. The ritual required three sacred elements: a tear shed in sincere grief, a relic of the past that held a cherished memory, and a flame that burned with the pure light of hope. With trembling resolve, Cecilia prepared to perform the counter-ritual. She gathered a small, delicate locket that had once belonged to the lost daughter, a relic that glowed faintly with the warmth of bygone days. Then, in the solitude of the cursed room, she allowed herself to weep genuine tears of sorrow and remembrance. Each tear, as it fell, shimmered with a fragile light before merging with the cold air. Finally, she lit a single candle, its flame steady and defiant against the encroaching chill. Standing at the center of the room, with the locket cradled in one hand and the candle in the other, Cecilia recited a prayer of forgiveness and remembrance, a heartfelt plea to the ancient spirit that haunted the room. Her voice, soft yet resolute, filled the chamber with words of healing and hope. The air around her began to stir, and slowly, imperceptibly at first, the cold receded. The temperature, which had dropped so drastically, started to rise, gradually like the gentle thaw of winter giving way to spring. For what felt like an eternity, Cecilia chanted and wept, each moment a step toward releasing the sorrow that had so long bound the room. The whispers of the past softened, their mournful tones giving way to a quiet harmony, as if the very walls were exhaling a sigh of relief. The locket, too, seemed to pulse with a renewed warmth, its presence a tangible reminder of love rather than loss. At the climax of the ritual, a sudden, breathtaking transformation took place. The once icy air filled with the gentle radiance of a rising dawn, even though the night was far from over. The old mantel clock began to tick once more, its sound resonating with the renewed pulse of life in the room. Cecilia, her eyes shining with both exhaustion and triumph, felt a warmth spreading from her chest, a warmth that defied the lingering chill and filled every corner of the cursed chamber. The room that had grown colder with each passing minute was now infused with the light of redemption and the promise of renewal. The shadows that had once seemed to cling to the walls in a frozen despair now danced softly in the gentle glow of the candlelight. The curse had not vanished entirely, for echoes of sorrow still lingered in the corners, but its hold had been broken enough to allow warmth and life to return. In the days that followed the ritual, Blackwood Manor began to transform. The cursed room, once a prison of eternal cold, became a sanctuary of healing. Cecilia continued her work, tending to the room as she would a wounded soul, and slowly the scars of the past softened. Visitors who came seeking answers found that the room, while still touched by sorrow, now exuded a quiet comfort in a promise of hope. Word of the miracle spread through Willowbrook and beyond. Scholars, mystics, and ordinary townsfolk came to witness the transformation of the haunted room, and many found solace in its gentle warmth. Cecilia's courageous act of confronting the tragic past had not only lifted a curse, but had also united the community in a shared commitment to honor memory with love and forgiveness. The room became a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest, coldest moments, there exists the potential for healing if one dares to face the pain with an open heart. Years passed, and the tale of the room that grew colder with every lingering moment became a cherished part of local lore. Blackwood Manor, once shrouded in mystery and sorrow, transformed into a place of reflection where people came to remember and to heal. Cecilia, now regarded as a gentle guardian of the past, taught others the importance of embracing one's history, both the joy and the pain, so that the spirit might emerge whole and resilient. She founded a small haven within the manor, a space where people could gather to share their stories, cry their sorrows, and ultimately find comfort in the collective journey of healing. The room itself was lovingly restored, Its icy legacy a permanent reminder of the transformative power of forgiveness and the courage to face one's deepest fears. It served as a pilgrimage site for those seeking renewal, a sacred space where the cold of the past was met with the warmth of human compassion. In the quiet twilight of a new era, as the seasons continued their eternal cycle, the legacy of the cursed room endured, a testament to the belief that even the coldest, darkest places can be thawed by the light of understanding and the heat of compassion. Visitors to Blackwood Manor often remarked on the room's dual nature. Though it had once been a harbinger of despair, it had now become a symbol of the human capacity for change. For in every heart lies a room where memories are stored, some warm with the glow of love, others chilled by the touch of sorrow. It is our choice to nurture these spaces, to let the light of empathy melt away the frost of regret, and to transform our inner darkness into a beacon of hope. Thus ends the saga of the room that grows colder the longer one stays, a timeless story of confrontation, redemption, and the endless journey toward healing. In every whispered memory, every tear shed in its presence, in every gentle thaw of the heart, the legacy of that fated chamber lives on, inviting all who enter to embrace the truth that even the deepest cold can be overcome by the warmth of a compassionate soul.